What's going on, everyone? GoodMicWork Commentaries back at you with episode 531. I'm finally back with a regular podcast episode. I sincerely apologize for being in front of the camera so often lately. The past couple of weeks have been very busy for me at my job and in my personal life, and most of you know that I do reserve the right during some weeks where we have a slow news week or not a whole lot's going on Raw and SmackDown and there's not a whole lot to talk about. Sometimes I come up here and give you guys a live stream or give you guys a one-off or something like that, and that's what I've done the past couple of weeks. I think my last regular podcast episode came right after the Royal Rumble. So you might see that here or there from time to time when we do have slow news weeks, but rest assured you will always get content from me. And I have liked the past couple of weeks when I've done Friday afternoon streams. They've worked out really well, and a lot of you have been able to tune in for those. So expect those on weeks where it's a little bit slower, but if there's one week where you can always guarantee that I'm going to have a regular podcast episode, it's after pay-per-views. And we've got a lot to get into in this episode. I'm going to run down a brief recap of the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view from last Sunday. We'll also discuss what took place this week on Monday Night Raw and SmackDown Live. We'll run down the current card for Fastlane and speculate a ton on what we might see at WrestleMania and some future matchups there. So there's a lot to get into in terms of the current product, and we're also going to open up with a whole bunch of wrestling news as well. So it should be a relatively loaded podcast, even though I don't anticipate it being a very long episode. So let's not waste too much time and get into things here, but I do want to ask you guys to all subscribe to this channel if you have not yet already. We are eyeballing 30,000 on the YouTube channel. I would like to get there very soon, so a subscription would definitely help. And if you would like to download this episode, head on over to my website, GoodMicWorkCommentaries.com. You can download the MP3 of this. You can catch me over on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and Spotify. And if you could do me another huge favor as well and smash that like button, if we can get up to 200 likes, I will send you a chocolate chip cookie. Let's start getting into what we're going to discuss tonight as the rain is coming down here in San Diego. It is so loud outside right now. I hope this rain does not affect the audio here. Hopefully, you guys won't be able to notice, but it is raining its balls off here in San Diego, California, and it's been raining its balls off for the past few days. I don't know what the hell's going on. We have like the most perfect weather, but it's a nightmare out there right now. So I apologize if you hear any rain pellets hitting the window or any other sort of feedback or distortion in the audio. Hopefully, I'm able to clean that up in the editing. But anyway, like I said, I want to jump into some wrestling news first before we get into the Elimination Chamber and Raw and SmackDown. Right at the top of the list of things I want to discuss is Tye Dillinger. Tye Dillinger apparently has asked and requested his release from WWE, and it appears that it has been granted. He made a statement on Twitter thanking the WWE, thanking everybody that works there, all the wrestlers he worked with. He was very gracious and thankful for all of his opportunities. Very professional, very classy statement made by Tye Dillinger, and I could not be happier for him. You can add him to the list of the many, many disgruntled underneath talent that are currently in the WWE right now. And it looks like they're all getting antsy, and they're all starting to talk to each other, and they're all starting to get out. And I'm happy that WWE isn't standing in his way. Hopefully, WWE will not stand in the way of anybody else that's looking to get a release. We have heard stories that the Revival have recently asked for their release, and they're currently tag team champions right now. And there's a lot of other talent as well, Sanity and a few other guys that have been voicing their displeasure with their use in WWE. So Tye Dillinger is the latest, and I'm really happy that it appears, I don't think we've gotten really true confirmation, but I don't believe that Dillinger would have released that statement and changed his Twitter handle and changed his name and all of that if he wasn't officially released from the company. So very happy for him and can't wait to see where he turns up, because guys like him, you know, they're probably looking around saying, hey, I'm not getting any younger and I'm just spinning my wheels here. They're not doing anything with me. And this might be a big wake-up call for WWE. The more of these guys we see do this, it might be the beginning of WWE starting to manage their talent a little bit differently and realize that if we just bring guys in and pay them to show up at TV every week and eat catering, they're going to ask for their release. And if we don't want to lose them to competing promotions, and now that All Elite Wrestling is spraying up and they've got a lot of money behind them, a lot of wrestlers, their ears are perking up and they're like, huh, what's that? I might want to go over there. And anybody that's currently on the WWE roster, it should be a pretty easy job for them to get hired by All Elite Wrestling just based on their name and the level of star they are. So Dillinger is only one of many. We've seen Hideo Itami recently released as well, and I believe he asked for his. So even with All Elite Wrestling out there, and even with reports of WWE being, quote, worried about All Elite Wrestling, it's nice to see that they're not cock-blocking guys, and they're letting them leave if they really truly want to leave. And that's nice to hear because this is their lives and they should be able to do what they want if they're unhappy, and they shouldn't have a contract lock them down. So hopefully with some of this talent that maybe is not being used and WWE really doesn't have any use for anyway, is it really going to hurt them to let them go? So I'm glad that they're not trying to keep him around. And there might be some cases where they don't want talent to leave. Apparently they told the Revival, hey, give us a chance, give us a couple of months, see what we can do. And they're currently tag team champions. So you never know. With future talent that's voicing their displeasure, maybe WWE says we better do something with them or we need to cut them loose. And if we don't want them going somewhere else, then the alternative to that is actually treat them better on the roster. Give them something to work with. Give them a storyline. Give them plans. Give them a push. Give them something to where they're actually on TV and not just sitting in the back, wasting their lives in airports and traveling all the time for nothing. All they're doing is working house shows. So I'm glad to hear cases like this, and I wish Tye Dillinger nothing but the best. You got a Raw deal. You were super over in NXT. You came to the main roster, and everybody loved you, and WWE did dick with that character and with that talent. And he's easily worthy of contending for the United States title. I thought Tye Dillinger could be in a situation that Mustafa Ali is currently in now, where he's starting to get title matches and stuff. I thought Dillinger was one of those guys, but evidently WWE did not, and now Tye Dillinger can move on to bigger and better things. Good luck, my man. We also have a storyline twist in the Corey Graves and Carmella situation. I definitely wanted to talk about this first. Now, as we all know, a few days ago, Corey Graves' wife went on Instagram and basically outed him for sleeping with Carmella. And the way she worded the Instagram post, it made it sound and it made it seem like Corey Graves had cheated on her, that he had let her down, that he had betrayed her. I never doubted it for a second because it made perfect sense to me. I'm like, yeah, it's wrestling. Men and women, beautiful men and women, that is, working together day in and day out. You're going to have some romances. You're going to have some affairs. It's happened for years and years, and it'll never stop. So Corey Graves' quote, infidelity is only one of many cases. Seth Rollins got popped doing something kind of shady. We know about Bray Wyatt and JoJo, and there's plenty of other examples of kind of freaky shit going on behind the scenes. So when this came out, for me, I gave my comments on it in the live stream, and I even put a mic drop up on it. I didn't really mind the way Corey Graves' wife handled it. If it was me that was betrayed, I might not handle it the same way, but I certainly can't judge her, especially if she's, hurt and, Corey Graves betrayed her and all of that. And what was cracking me up is so many fans, rushing to Corey's defense saying, oh, well, where's the proof? Like he robbed a fucking bank or something. And I'm like, his wife is the proof. There's no way, without me even knowing his wife, it makes no sense for her to make this up. And then we started seeing text message screenshots, one of which was Corey Graves saying, boy, she's really going to freak out when she finds out Total Divas hit me up. And he at one point told her to take down the Instagram post because she could get sued. And I'm like, boy, Corey Graves, number one, is not denying this at all. And number two, he doesn't seem to be feeling any remorse. And I'm like, what a douchebag. Well, we've gotten some more news, and there's a little twist here in the fact, and it makes a lot of sense now because I was beginning to think that Corey Graves was just a heartless son of a bitch, but luckily, these two, him and his wife, have actually been going through the process of a divorce for several months now, and apparently Corey Graves has not even lived in the same home with her in several weeks, so he's moved on. They've agreed to split. The divorce is just not final yet. So this changes everything. When she outed him as sleeping with Carmella, she didn't find out about it because Corey Graves got caught. She found out about it because Corey Graves told her. That pissed her off, leading her to post all that shit on Instagram. So really, at the end of the day, even though Corey Graves is technically a married man, they were separated. They were moving on, and you can't blame a guy for moving on with his life. So provided this latest development in this situation is true, which all of the big credible news sites are also reporting, so it looks like it is, Corey Graves is not such a D-bag after all. He's just moving on with his life, decided to date Carmella. Wife found out about it, got pissed, lashed out. She's since not only taken down the Instagram post, but also deleted her social media altogether. So that's kind of a funny little twist there, and I just wish everybody in this nasty mess the best, especially Corey Graves' kids. I hope that him and his wife are able to maintain a civil relationship just for the sake of the children. And I hope Corey's happy. I hope Carmella's happy. And I hope Corey Graves' wife is able to move on. So it seems kind of strange. I remember watching Corey Graves in that ESPN special when WWE offered him a 2-year deal to be an announcer, and he called his wife, and it was like this tearful moment between the two of them. He seemed to be happily married, but when you start making money and you start acquiring fame, maybe Corey felt like he was in need of a JJ upgrade, and he started having problems with his wife, and that led to the split, and he wanted to move on. That sort of thing happens in fame. You don't have to look any further than Hollywood. How many actresses and actors actually stay married for years and years and years? You can probably count on one hand, of Hollywood couples that have been together forever. It's very rare, and wrestling is no different. And the whole situation was kind of weird, but when all of that came out, I was almost relieved, because now that made so much more sense. When Corey Graves is not denying it and laughing that his wife's going to freak out because Total Divas hit him up, I'm like, is this guy not remorseful at all? Does he not feel bad about this? Well, it's because he didn't really technically cheat. He cheated by law. If I called Corey Graves a douchebag in my last live stream or anything like that, hey, Corey Graves, I apologize. Maybe you're not such a bad guy after all. I also want to talk about the really exciting news of next year's Royal Rumble event. It looks like the tradition of Royal Rumbles being in baseball stadiums might become a thing, because now they're headed back to another one in 2020, Minute Maid Park in Houston. I think tickets went on sale for that, or some early tickets went on sale during Elimination Chamber, which was also in Houston. And this is really exciting for me for one particular reason. Number one, it's the second year in a row that the Royal Rumble will be held in a baseball park, which I think is awesome. I'm very much in favor of that, because the layouts are always different. A lot of football stadiums, even though they're very beautiful arenas, a lot of them at the end of the day kind of look the same. Baseball parks are completely different. They are all different shapes and sizes. So you can always count on some sort of a unique looking set or a different looking atmosphere or vibe to shows that take place in baseball stadiums. And if this turns out to be a trend, if this is something that WWE is going to do every year, are y'all thinking what I'm thinking? PETCO Park, baby, 2021. Come on, WWE. It's an outdoor arena, but it can be very nice here in January. I've got some rain coming down pretty hard right now, and it's chilly as hell, but that's rare. And PETCO Park would really not work for any other event. We've mentioned SummerSlam, but that's during baseball season, and there's no way they would be able to get in and out of here on time before the Padres have to play again. But in January, nobody's using the damn park. So I would really hope that if WWE's looking for baseball stadiums to play in every year for Royal Rumble, that they come here to San Diego in 2021. So get the word out there. Let's petition for that. Bring the Royal Rumble to San Diego, because I would love to attend that show and hold a meet and greet and hang out with all of you. There's also a couple of title changes that I want to acknowledge. Number one, I didn't talk about this last week, but Jay White actually won the IWGP title at New Japan's New Beginning in Osaka show. He beat Tanahashi for it. I believe that was Tanahashi's first title defense. I don't think he's defended that title since he won it at Wrestle Kingdom. And Jay White also defeated Okada on that very show. So this guy is on a roll with all of that talent leaving New Japan. They've been pushing him hard, and he's such a young guy, and I like him. I've liked him in every match I've seen him in, and he's gotten some big victories, and now he's gotten the biggest. I still thought he might be like a year or two away, because I don't know how old he is. I want to say he's like 24 or 5. He's super young. I kind of thought he was still a solid year away, or maybe even 2 years away from winning that title. But here he wins it in kind of an upset in Tanahashi's first defense and beats him clean, just like he beat Okada clean at Wrestle Kingdom. So congrats to Jay White. Really happy for you. And I think that's awesome. So I'm wishing him all the best on top of the mountain now in New Japan. And another interesting title change that took place on Wednesday at the NXT event was Velveteen Dream defeating Johnny Gargano for the North American title. Now, I had completely forgotten about this. This match was actually taped several weeks ago. I remember mentioning a potential spoiler in one of my last episodes. I think the last podcast I did, 529, was when I said, if you guys want to read the NXT results, there's a title change there that you might find interesting. And it finally aired tonight, which means I didn't even think about this during my Monday Raw stream, was that when Gargano was on Raw and SmackDown this week, he was actually carrying a title that he had already lost. I didn't even put that together, and I'd completely forgotten that Velveteen had defeated Gargano at the taping. So congrats to Velveteen Dream. Glad he's finally tasted gold in NXT. everybody's very high on him, and we all see superstar potential and dollar signs in Velveteen. He's not one of the current guys that are on the main roster right now, but that day will come for him. I'm glad he's got the belt, and excited to see what he winds up doing with it. And I'm going to get into those NXT talents that did appear on this week's TV here in just a minute, but let's quickly run through the Elimination Chamber. I was also up here this past Sunday reacting to the entire pay-per-view. It was a lot of fun. In general, though, the pay-per-view overall, I would say, was kind of lackluster. I really wasn't looking real forward to this pay-per-view, if for no other reason than I'm just not a big fan of the Elimination Chamber concept. You guys know that. I mention it all the time. Not my favorite match idea. I think the thing is ridiculous. It's over the top. It's insane. It's ludicrous. This monstrosity that they build, this inverted war games on crack. I don't know what you call it. I just don't like it. And I never have. But to the credit of the talent, a lot of these Elimination Chamber matches are really good. And I think the women and the men's chamber matches at the pay-per-view saved this from being a bad pay-per-view. And the show opened up with the women competing in the Elimination Chamber to crown new women's tag team champions. That did go to Sasha and Bayley. That's who I predicted to win, and they basically ran the table. They had to start the match because they lost the triple threat on Raw the previous week, so they had to start the chamber, and I thought that was going to be a perfect story with the two of them. I thought they had tag team champions written all over them since the day these titles were introduced. They were my pick to win, and they did, and I thought they were the right choice. And the match was good, and the crowd seemed to appreciate it. It was a great moment for Sasha and Bayley, and their names will now go down in the record books as what WWE is calling the first ever women's tag team champions. And they kind of are. I mean, the belts that were around in the 1980s with the Jumping Bomb Angels and the Glamour Girls, that was a very short-lived title in WWE. And as a matter of fact, if you read the history on those women's tag team titles, I'm pretty sure they came over from the NWA. NWA had some women's tag team champions they signed with WWE, and those titles morphed into the WWF women's tag team champions. Very interesting and surreal story if you go back and read on that. So I'm perfectly fine with kind of erasing those from history and considering these titles the first ever WWE women's tag team titles. And Bayley and Sasha was done primarily because they are two really good names to have in the record books as the first ones to hold this belt. I didn't see it going to the Iconics or another team that's not really proven or could not even be in WWE a year or two from now. Bayley and Sasha have the reputation, they have the legacy, they have the title lineage, and they're decorated, and I think they made, of all the teams in that, they made the most sense to win, and they did, and they won by finishing off Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville. We also had new SmackDown tag team champions. The Usos defeated Shane and The Miz. That was a little bit surprising. I did not expect Shane and The Miz to drop the tag team titles that quick. I thought it would happen the next month at Fastlane, and then they would implode, and that would lead to their WrestleMania match. But the Usos beat them, and a little bit of a surprising finish there, considering just a couple of days before this, Jimmy Uso was arrested when he was pulled over and not cooperating with the police, and he was arrested, and WWE rewarded him with a championship belt, so that was nice. And another really surprising finish, another one that I predicted incorrectly and I did not see coming, Finn Balor is your new Intercontinental Champion. He defeated Bobby Lashley and Lio Rush in that handicap match, and he won the match by pinning Lio Rush, which infuriated Bobby Lashley, but Balor won the title. It's another title victory that I thought they would hold off on, much like I thought they would hold off Shane and Miz dropping the tag titles. I thought they would hold off Lashley dropping the IC, and I kind of thought Finn Balor might get another match against Lashley at Fastlane and fall short again, and then show up at WrestleMania as the Demon to win the Intercontinental title from Bobby Lashley. But they did it at the Elimination Chamber instead. Thrilled for Finn Balor. That guy was in desperate need of some sort of a championship here, and I hope he can have a run, because that thing has been hot potatoed from Seth to Dean to Lashley. I don't know why they just didn't put this thing on Balor right from the start if that was the point, because if they don't go back to Lashley with the title, that means his run lasted 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it was. Lashley's run was virtually nothing. Now he saves face because Lio Rush was pinned, not Lashley, but I thought they would eventually get to the Balor-Lashley match where Balor beats him clean, but they might not be going in that direction because we would see Bobby Lashley just a little bit later on in that stupid match between Baron Corbin and Braun Strowman. And it was a no disqualification match, so Drew McIntyre and Bobby Lashley interfered on Baron Corbin's behalf, and the three of them beat the shit out of Braun Strowman, allowing Baron Corbin to pick up the win. So Strowman now has to contend with these three monsters. And on Raw, he would have a tables match with Baron Corbin, but we saw no interference. So I don't know if Corbin, McIntyre, and Lashley are a unit or what the hell's going on there. But if they are, you got to think at some point Braun Strowman has got to have some backup. And we've got Bray Wyatt and Luke Harper, who are both MIA. And now that Rowan is with Daniel Bryan on SmackDown, maybe you can bring Harper to Raw and form a new Wyatt family. Just a 3-man group, and just completely separate Rowan from them. And they can be the ones to back up Strowman. And we got the Wyatts taking on Corbin, McIntyre, and Lashley at WrestleMania or something. I don't know. We also saw Ronda Rousey surprisingly squash Ruby Riott. I was being surprised left and right on this pay-per-view. I was predicting everything wrong. Ronda Rousey really hasn't squashed anyone yet. Everyone she's had a match with, Nia Jax, Alexa Bliss, Nikki Bella, Charlotte, all of them, she's had hard-fought wins. You know, she's sold for them. She's made the other talent look good, and I didn't think Ruby Riott would be any different. But this match lasted about 5 seconds, and she tapped out Ruby Riott. Charlotte is on the outside of the ring here watching this match, and Becky Lynch shows up on crutches because, of course, she's suspended for 60 days. She's been showing up at live events, attacking Charlotte, and I think the previous night or a couple of nights before Elimination Chamber, she attacked Charlotte at a house show, and Charlotte was able to turn the tables on her and re-injure Becky's knee in storyline. So Becky is hobbling around there on crutches. Not only is she injured, she's also suspended. She gets in the ring and absolutely annihilates both Charlotte and Ronda Rousey with those crutches. Both girls were cut up. Ronda Rousey got a nasty gash on her head. Charlotte's arms were all scraped and lacerated. It was a mess. It was a brutal beatdown by Becky Lynch onto Charlotte and Rousey. And I do, believe it or not, kind of like what they're doing here because they are keeping us guessing a little bit. Of course, the fans are all freaking out about Charlotte's involvement, but I've made my peace with that. I really do think this is the right thing to do because as we saw on Monday Night Raw a couple of weeks ago when Becky and Ronda were in the ring, the fans are so incredibly pro-Becky that they are going to shit all over Ronda Rousey, which is something that the WWE doesn't really want. And to be honest, I don't want it either. I don't mind it so much when the fans boo Roman Reigns because I think that's all part of the fun. But with Rousey, I really don't think she deserves it. She's going to be booed by default because she's in there with Becky Lynch. So by adding Charlotte and having Vince be the one to add Charlotte, they can now be the bad guys, and you can have the fans just project all of their anger onto them, especially Charlotte, who's not really beloved by the fans right now anyway. And like I said in my last episode, I don't know how they're going to do this and how they're going to get to the point where Becky is eventually added to the match. They could do this in a couple of weeks, or next week on Monday Night Raw in Atlanta when Ric Flair has his birthday celebration. Maybe Becky Lynch hits the ring, attacks Ric Flair, puts him in the disarmor, and threatens to break his arm unless they insert Becky Lynch into the main event at WrestleMania or something like that. Or maybe we get a match at Fastlane. If Becky wins, then she's inserted into the main event at WrestleMania. But at the end of the day here, it really feels like she will be added to the match at some point, and we are looking at a triple threat. And so for the fans that are freaking out about that, let me just ask you one thing. If this turns out to be a WrestleMania 20 situation where Becky Lynch is playing the role of Chris Benoit, and Becky Lynch taps out Ronda Rousey the same way Benoit tapped out Triple H at WrestleMania, what in the world would be so wrong with that? With Becky Lynch beating the two most dominant females in the WWE in the same match. Is that really so wrong? Is that really worse than Becky and Ronda one-on-one? I would have loved to see Becky and Ronda one-on-one, but I'm certainly not pissed that these three ladies are going to be in this match, which is looking more and more likely to be the main event with each passing day. I mean, that's the word on the street right now. Still no true confirmation, I don't think, from WWE about that, but it does look like that is going to be the match that is going to close this show. And like I said, the fans love to hate Charlotte. I understand that, but you got to think about it from her perspective. If anybody was screwed out of this match, it was her. WWE is actually doing the right thing for her because they had her and Ronda Rousey penciled in to have this match at WrestleMania months ago. Nia Jax is the one that fucked all that up. You guys know that. For as mad as we were about Nia Jax's fist put Becky Lynch in the main event of WrestleMania. Now, granted, that's not official yet. She still has to be unsuspended and added to the match somehow. They have to do all of that on TV, but we're all assuming that's what they're going to do. They're not going to leave her off the WrestleMania pay-per-view. Even I'd cancel my WWE network over something like that. So you know she's going to get in there. And because of all the fan support she has now, she's likely going to win the title. She probably will. So if she does, and she has that great moment, and she closes out the show like Daniel Bryan did at WrestleMania 30, or like Benoit and Eddie did at WrestleMania 20, and she's celebrating, and there's confetti coming down, and she has the big moment, do you really give a fuck that Charlotte was in that match? Who cares? I think it's still a great moment for Becky, and it's still her night. So I will be the first one to plant my flag and say, I do not care. Yes, if I had my choice, it would be one-on-one, but I certainly don't think Charlotte is going to ruin the match or take away from the match. If anything, Charlotte's involvement is going to make the in-ring contest between the three of them better, especially if the plan was for her to be there all along, and Nia Jax fucked all the plans up with her botch. You know, it was so amazing to me how the fans were perfectly fine with Charlotte being cast aside if that was going to be the case. You know, Nia Jax bashing in the skull of Becky Lynch really fucked over Charlotte. Fans didn't care. They were happy that she got fucked over. And WWE, I don't think was going to do that. So it looks like we're getting the triple threat, and you guys can let me know what you think they're going to do in order to incorporate Becky into the match. We know what's going to happen. How would you do it? You know, are you going to have Triple H and Stephanie have a power struggle with Vince? Maybe they don't agree with his decision and they make a match, or there's a compromise or something like that that should start all being put into motion, you would think, this Monday night on Raw with the whole Ric Flair birthday thing. So hopefully that will begin Becky's path into the WrestleMania main event for the Raw Women's title. That's my hope anyway. So you guys let me know what you think about that. And finally, of course, at the Elimination Chamber, the main event, Daniel Bryan retained the WWE title in the Elimination Chamber. He had to wrestle first. I believe it was Daniel Bryan and Samoa Joe that started the match. Now, Kofi Kingston was the big story of this match because he got entered into this match last minute after the injury to Mustafa Ali, and he had a great performance on SmackDown Live in the Gauntlet match a few days before this, and another great performance here in the Elimination Chamber match. It was an amazing week for Kofi Kingston, and he had all of the fan support. He had some of us debating whether or not they could actually put the title on him, even if it's for a short time. Maybe have him win it in the Chamber and then drop it at Fastlane. In the end, Kofi, much like the Gauntlet match, came oh so very close to winning, but falls short at the last minute in a really hard-fought effort against Daniel Bryan. You thought he had the match won there a couple of times. In the end, he lost, and the fans showed Kofi an unbelievable amount of love after the match. The New Day was in there, you know, helping Kofi up. A lot of fans just really were hoping that we could get some sort of a surprise title victory here, but I never really saw it coming. Even though Kofi probably deserves a run with the title more than anybody else on that roster, you gotta remember he was inserted last minute, and WWE generally doesn't make drastic changes like that quick. Had it not been for Mustafa Ali's black eye, Kofi wouldn't be in this match at all. So I had a really hard time believing that WWE would not only insert Kofi last minute into this match as a replacement, but also put the belt on him. That would really change up a lot of their plans that are already in their head for what Daniel Bryan's going to do at Fastlane and at WrestleMania. And I'm thinking what Kofi Kingston did in the Chamber might have been the same thing they had planned for Mustafa Ali, that he would be in there until the very end, hang with Daniel Bryan and almost win, but fall just short. And then Mustafa Ali would get a title match against Daniel Bryan at Fastlane. But instead, it's going to be Kofi Kingston facing Daniel Bryan at Fastlane. That match is set and it is official, and that's great for Kofi, you know, and I would still really like to see him get a run. WWE might be considering it the way the fans are making so much noise, but really at the end of the day, I don't see it, you know, but I'm also really curious what WWE is going to do with Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania. Assuming that he does retain against Kofi Kingston, who does he work with? He might work with Mustafa Ali. Maybe it's a Bryan, Ali, Kofi triple threat. Hell, if you wanted to do a New Day split, you could have Big E and Xavier turn on Kofi at Fastlane and help Daniel Bryan win. Who knows? I don't think they would do that, but it's an option at least. But really still, even though as much as I would love nothing more, and I really hope I'm wrong. I would love to see Kofi get a run with the belt. It seems like if they did that, it would have to change all of their current plans that they have for WrestleMania. So this might just be, you know, one change they had to make after Ali got hurt. They're going to put Kofi in this position instead, and he might, in the end, wind up falling short. I don't know if that will lead to Kofi getting another match at WrestleMania or not, or if Daniel Bryan winds up working with somebody else, a Bray Wyatt or a John Cena, maybe a Randy Orton, maybe even someone from NXT. Even though I really don't see that happening, they could do that. Maybe an Aleister Black or someone like that. Who knows? You know, I guess it's anybody's game at this point. Let's move on now to Monday Night Raw and talk about that. I'm only going to kind of skim through the show. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but I do want to mention what Raw opened with, and that was a Triple H promo. He was out there to announce a whole bunch of things to the fans. And one of the big announcements he made was already broke earlier on in the day by ESPN, and that is D-Generation X will be going into the Hall of Fame this year in 2019. And when I say D-Generation X, I mean all of them, including the ninth wonder of the world, Chyna. Bravo. Thank you. Jesus. It's about fucking time. Chyna finally goes into the Hall of Fame. Now, it's not quite what I had in mind for her going into the Hall of Fame. I always envisioned her going in on her own since she was such a pioneer and a trendsetter, and there was no one like her. And WWE has had some controversy with Chyna, with Triple H saying that he doesn't want his kids Googling her name and shit like that, and all these dumb excuses WWE has come up with for her not going into the Hall of Fame. This isn't quite what I had in mind, but it's definitely a start, and I will definitely take it. And I know her mother was very happy. I think she mentioned something on Twitter about Joni going into the Hall of Fame, and I think this is great that they're including her, and they're basically doing both versions of DX all combined into one induction. So you're going to get Triple H, Chyna, and Shawn, and you're also going to get the Outlaws and X-Pac. Now, X-Pac is another guy that I've mentioned recently as far as candidates for the Hall of Fame this year, you know, with the Rick Martels and the Bam Bam Bigelows and guys like that and the Pillmans. I thought X-Pac should go into the Hall of Fame, but he's kind of in the same boat as Chyna. I mean, X-Pac's got a controversial life. He's done some crazy shit. Hell, he made a sex tape with Chyna. So this might be the only way X-Pac can get in. And I'm also curious if D-Generation X is going to be the headliner. Generally in Hall of Fame years, correct me if I'm wrong, don't they announce the headliner first and then they announce the rest of the class? I thought since it's in New York, this show had to be centered around The Rock or The Undertaker. They're the two biggest names out there right now currently that could be suitable headliners for a show this big. Maybe Dave Bautista and a couple of other names, but the big ones are Rock and Undertaker. And I thought for sure, 1,000,000% that one of them will go into the Hall of Fame this year, but it's starting to look like it's DX. DX might be the headliners. So we'll find out. We'll get some more names, I guess, every single week now leading up to WrestleMania. Still no confirmation on the Hart Foundation. That was reported online by a couple of news outfits, and it looked like it was a done deal, and it probably still is. WWE just hasn't announced it yet. It would make a lot of sense with Neidhart passing away recently and Natalya being there. A nice moment for her, and it would be doing a favor to Natalya, you know, making her feel good to have her father remembered. It would mean a lot to her. So I still expect the Hart Foundation to go in. I guess we just haven't had it announced yet. I hope they don't renege on this or back out of this deal. I really want to see the Harts go in there. One thing I will say, though, and many of you might disagree with this, I'm not sure, but I truly, as a big Hart Foundation fan, as a huge fan of tag team wrestling in the 80s and 90s, I don't know if I would include Jimmy Hart. I know that sounds crazy. I mean, Jimmy Hart's a legend. He's a legendary manager, and he was a big part of the Hart Foundation, but only for a little while. I mean, Jimmy was only with them for the first couple of years, and he was only with them for one of their title runs. Because when they had their second run, when they beat Demolition, they were babyfaces, and they didn't have a manager. So Jimmy Hart wasn't like with them the whole time. If it was up to me, I would just do Bret Hart and Neidhart alone. But they've included Jimmy Hart in this, which at the end of the day is fine. It's not like I'm upset about it. I just almost think that he doesn't need to be involved with them because he wasn't with them during their entire run. But his last name is Hart, and he did help comprise that Hart Foundation stable that they had there in the 80s. And now Jimmy Hart is a two-time Hall of Famer, and congrats to him. But in addition to the Hall of Fame, Triple H had a whole bunch of other big announcements as well, one of which was that out of the blue, all of a sudden, we had no word of this. I think it was announced earlier on in the day by WWE on Twitter or on their website or something. But for some reason, WWE decided to showcase 4 big NXT talents on Monday Night Raw and SmackDown this week. Triple H announced that Ricochet, Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa, and Aleister Black would all be competing on Monday Night Raw. And they would also all be competing on SmackDown Live as well. And I think this is awesome. I think this is great, but I don't understand why. I mean, many of these guys are champions, and they're being featured on Raw and SmackDown. Now, we were talking about this on the stream. I don't know what the word is internally or what the dirt sheets are reporting, but it seems to me like they're bringing these guys up just to showcase them to the casual WWE fan, to the main roster fan, the people that tune into Raw and SmackDown every week on the USA Network that might not be subscribed to the WWE Network and not get a chance to see these guys a lot. They've already brought up a bunch of guys, and none of those guys and gals have really done a whole lot yet. So now they're bringing up people that aren't being moved up to the main roster, but just being featured on the main roster. And Gargano and Ciampa on Raw and SmackDown both said in promos that they want to invade. And that got us thinking, and that got us talking during the live stream on Monday. And I pitched a couple of weird random ideas that what if WWE is starting to decide to sprinkle in some of this NXT talent to just make appearances here or there. We saw that a couple of years ago with Kevin Owens coming up as champion and challenging John Cena. WWE wants to showcase them in front of the main audience, but not really have them be a full-blown call-up either. And as awesome as I think that is because of all the cool matches we can get, if they don't have a storyline for them or if they don't have anything interesting for them to do, then, what's the difference between them coming up and the other 6 people they brought up? Just adding people isn't going to necessarily make things better, even though they picked 4 amazing talents in Ricochet, Gargano, Ciampa, and Black. I mean, you can't get any better. That's the cream of the crop of the NXT roster. Now, like I said, they all had matches on Monday Night Raw. We had Ricochet come out to make the save for Finn Balor, who was getting beat up by Bobby Lashley. Balor came out to cut a promo, a victory promo after winning the Intercontinental title. He's then interrupted by Lio Rush on the stage, who distracts him, and Bobby Lashley hits the ring from behind and attacks Finn Balor. Ricochet runs out to make the save, and we get an impromptu tag team match. And of course, they're not going to bring up this NXT talent to have him lose. Ricochet and Balor did defeat Rush and Lashley after Ricochet hit his 950 splash, or whatever the hell it is, onto Lio Rush and got the victory. Aleister Black took on Elias. Now, Elias, I love him, and I think WWE could have thought of someone better for Aleister Black to defeat. Elias just seems to be handed one defeat after another. I think he's the type of character that isn't necessarily going to be main eventing WrestleManias or anything like that, and I've always defended his character that he has a prominent spot on the card. He's on the show every week in a segment. He has the fans eating out of the palm of his hand, but WWE just is fucking everything up. They turned him heel again. They can't decide if he's heel or babyface. He has absolutely zero storyline direction. Every feud he has been in has completely sucked, and I feel like they're wasting him a lot, and he's got a lot to offer. He doesn't have to be on top and win title belts or anything like that because of who his character is. That's not really needed for him, but he still needs something significant to do. They do the same thing with him every week. He comes out there to sing, and then somebody interrupts him, and then there's a match, and most often he loses. And Aleister Black was the one who interrupted him on Monday night, and the two had a good little match, and as expected, Aleister Black beat Elias. But, it's not really a burial to lose to someone who's better than you. I like Aleister Black better than Elias as far as in the ring goes, so I wouldn't really classify this as a burial. It's just not really a loss that I would give to Elias. I would have put somebody else in that match with Aleister Black. You got a whole bunch of talent back there. You could have put a whole handful of guys in this match and had them job to Aleister Black that would have done a lot less damage maybe than Elias taking yet another loss on Monday Night Raw. And we also had DIY reuniting to take on the Revival in a really good tag team match, and Gargano and Ciampa picked up the win there by defeating the tag team champions. And again, just like the Elias situation, it's not a burial if you lose to someone better than you. And I think as a tag team, as awesome as the Revival is, Gargano and Ciampa are far better, far more decorated, and have been around, just longer in general, and I think are the better tag team of the two. So again, Revival just won the titles a week ago, and here they are losing a match on TV. Not really my first choice of things to do, but who the hell knows what goes on in those monkeys' brains in WWE. We had somewhat of a squash match as well with Drew McIntyre taking on Dean Ambrose. A little segment took place backstage that led to this match with Dean Ambrose slapping the shit out of Drew McIntyre. They went out there and had a match, and McIntyre made pretty quick work of Dean Ambrose. So I think things are still a little bit up in the air with Ambrose, and if he's really going to leave after WrestleMania or not, I'm still not willing to 100% bet that he's leaving if WWE comes to him at the 11th hour with a great deal, or he changes his mind, or maybe he's just working everybody. Who knows what they're doing here? But right now, WWE is preparing for him to leave by having him job in a lot of matches. I don't know what's going to go on with his feud with EC3. I don't know if that's done. EC3 beat him a couple of weeks ago, and then Dean Ambrose beat him, I think, last week. And here this week he's just randomly working with McIntyre, so I don't know what that's about. And one thing I would pay attention to with Dean Ambrose, if it does turn out that he sticks around and he does not leave the company, is the way they're handling him on TV and some of the things he's doing in his interviews and backstage segments. Did you see on Raw where he approached Seth Rollins and he's kind of like losing it? They're kind of doing the storyline where he's kind of losing his mind, kind of like R-Truth a little bit, where he went up to Seth Rollins. He's like, oh man, I got my ass kicked out there. Where were you, man? Basically, like he's a member of the Shield again. Like all of the history between him and Seth Rollins, the heel turn and the feud that they had, he's acting like none of that ever happened. And him and Seth are like BFFs again. And Seth looked at him like, what the fuck's wrong with you? Are you crazy? So that could all be tying into something in the weeks and months to come here, depending on what Dean Ambrose winds up doing. And speaking of Seth Rollins, apparently some rewrites were taking place at TV this week because Rollins was not cleared to wrestle. He's got some back issues or something like that, and WWE thought he was going to be cleared, and then he wasn't cleared, so they had to change some things around on the show. We wound up seeing an interview or a promo with Paul Heyman and Seth Rollins, and Paul Heyman had two long Brock Lesnar video packages to show to the crowd, just hyping up how big and bad Brock Lesnar is because he's sitting on his ass at home, and they had to hype up this match. And I think the build for Rollins and Brock will really get cooking after Fastlane when we start seeing Brock on TV, when we get the contract signing and shit like that. But right now, they're playing up the fact that Brock is an unstoppable beast and Seth Rollins has zero chance to defeat him at WrestleMania. So we'll see how that storyline progresses, but I pretty much feel that's going to be the crux of the whole thing there. And that's what the whole feud will be centered around, Seth Rollins' enormous uphill battle to slay the beast. And finally, in the main event of Raw, we had a rematch between Ronda Rousey and Ruby Riott, and we got the match that I expected to see at the Elimination Chamber. We got that on Monday Night Raw. Ruby put up a much bigger fight this time, actually had some offense. The entire Riott squad was getting involved, and Ronda fought them all off, and eventually, in the end, tapped out Ruby Riott for the victory. And that was pretty much it for Monday Night Raw. It was a really dead crowd. The show wasn't bad because we got some great NXT talent. We had a lot of new matches and a few surprises and a couple of great moments on Monday Night Raw. But the crowd in Lafayette was the deadest I've ever heard. They were stone silent out there for everything. What the hell's wrong with them? It was highly noticeable, too. Corey Graves, I think, was giving the crowd shit a little bit on commentary. I saw a few people tweeting about it. So everybody could tell that this crowd literally seemed to have their thumbs up their asses and they were just smoking weed or something. I don't know what the hell they were doing, but they were not mentally at this event at all. It was just like zombies out there. So they didn't help matters at all with this Monday Night Raw. Let's move on to SmackDown, talk about that a little bit. We had the show open up with The Miz apologizing to Shane McMahon because it was The Miz that took the pin at the Elimination Chamber, losing them the tag team titles, and Shane busted his ass in that match. I mean, he was flying. He did the table elbow spot, which he does in every match, and one of these days he's going to kill himself. He went through all that trouble only for The Miz to lose the title, so The Miz is begging for Shane's forgiveness. He does forgive him, and it was announced that they will be getting a rematch at Fastlane against the Usos, and Fastlane is in the Miz's hometown of Cleveland, and they're going to have the Miz's dad at ringside. And I think his dad is going to play into this somehow because a couple of weeks ago on SmackDown, they did the big celebration where Shane brought the Miz's dad into the ring and he said, "I'm proud of you, son." And it was this big emotional moment. And I'm almost wondering if the dad turns heel. The Miz's dad is kind of like a cult figure. He's a legendary kind of behind the scenes guy. Every time we see him, the first time I saw him, I'm like, that's his dad. I've never seen anybody who looks quite like the Miz's dad. Just a very strange looking individual. And I think that maybe with all this stuff with his dad and being in the Miz's hometown, maybe Shane is the one to turn heel. Maybe Shane turns the Miz's dad against him or something like that. Somebody's got to go heel here because you would think that they're going to have a match between the two at WrestleMania. What else do? You're not going to have time to end this team and then move both guys on to have matches at WrestleMania. There's just no way. It's got to be The Miz and Shane McMahon somehow at WrestleMania. So something's going to go down in this rematch. And I think The Miz's dad is going to be involved. Either The Miz's dad turns on The Miz or The Miz could turn on Shane and Miz could go heel, maybe with help from his dad. I'm pretty sure Miz's Papa is going to be involved in the finish of this somehow. Like I said, all of the NXT talent that appeared on Monday Night Raw also appeared on SmackDown Live. We had Aleister Black rekindling his rivalry with Andrade, and he wound up beating Andrade, which is not too huge of a surprise. And I did read a report that Andrade and Charlotte are now dating. That's an interesting couple. And I believe Aleister Black and Zelina are married, so maybe that's a future mixed tag we get sometime in the future. I don't know. Gargano and Ciampa had another huge win on SmackDown, this time defeating the Bar. So first they beat the current tag team champions on Raw, and then they beat the former tag team champions on SmackDown. So Tommaso and Johnny are kicking ass on the main roster. I don't know how long they're going to stick around, if we're going to see them this week on Raw or next week on SmackDown or what the hell they're doing here. But it was really cool to see them kind of mixing in with some of this talent. And Ricochet also had a one-on-one match against Eric Young. So he's alive. I didn't know where Eric Young has been, hiding under the building somewhere. He's another one of those talents, much like a Tye Dillinger or a Hideo Itami or anybody like that should probably ask for his release and get the fuck out of there, because they haven't done anything with Sanity since coming up to the main roster. And Eric Young, he got cut open in this match too, had a lot of blood on his face. But that's going to happen when you have the type of style that Ricochet does. But I'm glad that they at least have Ricochet up on the main roster, because his talents are too good to waste. You know, he's a guy that wrestles that very high risk, very athletic style, and guys like that tend to be injury prone. So I think you need to get Ricochet and get your money out of him while you can. So if there's one guy out of that group that I would like to see stay on the main roster, it would be Ricochet, because he can have some phenomenal matches, especially on SmackDown, if he winds up working with an AJ Styles or a Daniel Bryan or someone like that, or a Mustafa Ali. I mean, think of the matches he can have. I think SmackDown is the best fit for Ricochet. Now, one thing I was also suggesting and speculating about, I forgot to mention this earlier on, I meant to, is that if WWE is starting to weave in some NXT talent into the main roster here or there, and with Gargano and Ciampa on both Raw and SmackDown saying that they're, quote, invading, I'm wondering if things can go the other way. If maybe WWE's trying to spice things up by bringing some NXT talent to the main roster and maybe sending some the other way. And I had pitched the idea on Monday night. Now, granted, I don't know how good of an idea this is. This idea might suck, but it was something that I thought about, that maybe if you had someone like, say, Ricochet come up to the main roster and challenge Finn Balor on Monday Night Raw for the Intercontinental title, and they start feuding for the title, and maybe Finn Balor makes an appearance on NXT and attacks Ricochet, and it leads to an Intercontinental title match during WrestleMania weekend. But instead of the Intercontinental title match taking place at WrestleMania, it takes place at TakeOver. You know, just a thought. You know, WWE, I would hate for Finn Balor to miss out on a WrestleMania match, but think about an Intercontinental title match between Finn Balor and Ricochet in an NXT ring and environment. You think the fans might enjoy that match a little bit? Oh yeah, they would. So I don't know if we really want to start doing that, and we want to start having belts defended on other shows, but it would be kind of a fun match and a different match and something that we have never seen before. A WWE title defended on an NXT show, where a match like that, they can have a Randy Savage and Ricky Steamboat type of match that might otherwise get lost in the shuffle on the huge 8-hour WrestleMania card. But on TakeOver, it can be heavily featured. These guys can be given 30 minutes to work a match, and it can be a beautiful affair. So it's just a thought. I don't think it's something that WWE would do, but since we're starting to see some NXT talent show up, and some of the talent are using words like invading, maybe that's something we see in the future. So just a thought. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And in your what the fuck moment of the week on SmackDown Live, Mandy Rose defeated Asuka. I will repeat that. Mandy Rose defeated Asuka. First of all, Asuka's back on TV. She's the SmackDown Women's Champion. We haven't seen her in 3.5 years. So she's back now. She has a match with Mandy Rose and is able to catch Asuka up with a roll-up and get a surprise pin over Asuka. So I'm guessing we're going to get Asuka versus Mandy Rose now. That's going to be our SmackDown Women's title feud. Hopefully going into Fastlane. I really hope this does not stretch into WrestleMania. And I hope Mandy Rose is simply a challenger for Asuka and they don't actually put the belt on Mandy Rose. I would probably say no. I think Asuka, maybe it's just an opponent they're giving to her right now. And in order to add heat to the feud, you have to give Mandy a victory over Asuka, because that's what WWE always does. They always have their champions pinned, you know, when they're in a feud with somebody. So that pin will probably earn Mandy a title shot. Hopefully that will come at Fastlane and they don't stretch this out until WrestleMania, because I would like to see Asuka prominently featured at WrestleMania. I don't want her left out in the cold here. If it turns out to be a triple threat, which it will likely be with Becky, Ronda, and Charlotte, where does that leave Asuka? She needs a big match, because otherwise her title is going to look secondary. And finally, on SmackDown, the main event was a 6-man tag with all of the participants from the Elimination Chamber, Kofi Kingston, AJ Styles, and Jeff Hardy taking on Daniel Bryan, Randy Orton, and Samoa Joe in the main event. And not surprisingly, WWE finally gave Kofi the moment here. He pinned Daniel Bryan, pinned the WWE Champion there for the finish, and in a really good spot in the middle of the match, he knocks down Randy Orton, and he yells, "Stupid, stupid," at Randy Orton. Loved that. That was a long time coming. I don't know how many years ago it was that Randy Orton did that to him. I want to say it's been over 10 now. They've since patched things up. It's all good between the two of them. And if anything, knowing the way Randy Orton has matured and grown up in his life, he probably even told Kofi to do that, and just to give him a receipt that was 10 years overdue. But I really like that spot in the match, and Kofi, by pinning Daniel Bryan, earns the title shot now at Fastlane, and it will be Daniel Bryan versus Kofi. And right now, the only 2 matches announced for the Fastlane card are Daniel Bryan defending the title against Kofi, and the Usos defending the SmackDown Tag Team titles against Shane McMahon and The Miz. I'm assuming we're going to get Bayley and Sasha Banks versus Nia Jax and Tamina. I did not mention them on Monday Night Raw, by the way. They did cut a victory promo, and Nia Jax and Tamina came out to confront them, and the whole deal. So Bayley and Sasha will probably wind up working with Nia and Tamina, even though I thought Bayley and Sasha would work with the SmackDown team first, just to give us a new matchup. But looks like it's going to be a Raw match. Finn Balor will likely defend the Intercontinental title. I'm assuming the U.S. title still exists, and R-Truth still holds that. Maybe he can have a title defense at some point. I would think that he's going to drop that belt before WrestleMania, but who knows? He might not. He might keep the U.S. title all the way until WrestleMania, but part of me thinks he's going to drop that damn thing. I think someone like Andrade should beat R-Truth for the title. That way he can feud with Rey Mysterio and potentially do a mask versus title match at WrestleMania. And Rey Mysterio, by the way, I'm sure some of you have already typed this in the comments below, Rey Mysterio is another candidate to face Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania, assuming Daniel is still champion going into Mania. He's going to need an opponent, and Rey's name is definitely on the list, but I think Rey is probably going to keep working with Andrade, but that's just a guess. So aside from that, that's all we really have for the Fastlane card, and we're just a couple of weeks away from really starting to get a good idea of what's going to take place at WrestleMania. We know Seth and Brock. We know right now Charlotte and Ronda, with Becky likely to be added. It's looking very likely that Shane McMahon will work with The Miz. WWE has also dropped hints at a Kurt Angle retirement match at WrestleMania. We could get that. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that if Kurt Angle has a retirement match at WrestleMania the same way Ric Flair had one at WrestleMania 24, I think Kurt Angle's best opponent on the roster would be AJ Styles, because AJ can give Kurt such a good match, just like Shawn did for Ric Flair, and I would really like to see Kurt Angle have that moment. And right now, they might need that extra attraction match, because we don't know what the status of The Undertaker is. There has been talk that they might be working out some plans for him for WrestleMania now. I mean, it wasn't looking like he was going to be involved in the show. I thought he would go into the Hall of Fame and maybe finally have his final match at WrestleMania, but that's not looking very likely now. And when it comes to potential opponents for Daniel Bryan, yes, that's right, for Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania for the WWE title, what about The Undertaker? And maybe it's career versus title. I don't know. So Daniel Bryan needs a challenger. Don't know what the status of a lot of these wrestlers are, especially The Undertaker. The Rock is another guy that we've heard stories of, maybe being able to work a match or do something at WrestleMania. I would really like to see The Rock be involved. You know, as a fan, I don't absolutely have to see him wrestle. It would be nice, but I don't have to see that. I would just like to see him there. I always enjoy seeing The Rock. I'm a big Rock fan, and I would like to see him be a part of WrestleMania in some way. And it would be really cool if The Rock or The Undertaker could go into the fucking Hall of Fame. But it doesn't look like that's currently the plan unless things change here in the next few weeks. So that is going to wrap it up for this episode. I got to get the hell out of here, get this thing edited and up to you to YouTube. You guys take care. Thank you very, very much for listening. I will catch you this Monday night as usual for my Monday Night Raw watch along. Y'all be good. I'll catch you in a couple of days. Until then, peace.
This has been a GoodMicWork Commentaries production. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube at youtube.com/GoodMicWork. Follow Greg Morgan on Twitter at GoodMicWork and visit GoodMicWorkCommentaries.com for all the latest podcast and video content.